Many people, especially atheists, like to argue of the authenticity of the author of the New Testament, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. They would say something like, these people did not write it, nor was the New Testament written in the first century. Well, this is simply not true. The gospel was written in the first century. Why do I say that? Because it was written based on historical narrative and some information that we have in the text. Only people that lived during that time would know. And we have early church fathers that says the gospel author are Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. But let's hear what Dr. Frank had to say. Take a look.
We consider at least two of the gospel authors anonymous, so we wouldn't even know like what sources that they necessarily
The best
have.
evidence we have from Papias, who's an early church father, and others, is that Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John wrote Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And if you were making up authors, you wouldn't pick those guys. You certainly wouldn't pick Luke, and you certainly wouldn't pick Mark, because they're not eyewitnesses. You would probably pick Peter, wouldn't you? And you would probably pick Thomas, or you would pick someone that had a name who is an apostle. Those people weren't picked because they didn't write the books. Luke did, Mark did, and Matthew was an eyewitness, and so is John. So this is not what you would expect if they were going to later put a name on the book. They wouldn't put those names on the book. You know, later in the 2nd century, there were forgeries called the Gospel of Peter, the Gospel of Thomas, the Gospel of Judas, the Gospel of Mary Magdalene. Why were those names on those 100 years after the events? Because the people that wrote those forgeries knew those names carried authority. So they put those names on the book to try and get the Christians to say, oh, this must have been written by Peter, when Peter had been dead for 100 years. There was no way it could have been Peter. So
I think for that, like, I think back then people used to like attribute works to different people. Like, you know, in the Republic, I think, you know, the author, he just like kind of brings in, like, I think it was Plato or something like that. You know, so where they'll, you know, if like it's someone reputable or something, they can just say it. And that was more of a common practice. So I think that's what could have happened to the other.
Hey, anything's possible. The question is, what's reasonable? What is the best evidence that we have? That's the question.
If you're a skeptic watching this video, read the Gospel of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John objectively, without any presupposition bias against the text or against miracle, and ask yourself, does the historical evidence point to Jesus Christ being reliable? If it does, put your faith in him, and when Jesus returns a second time, he'll give you eternal life. And if you find the evidence lacking, you think everybody's lying, this is made up, then you live your life the way you want to. Anyway, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, like the video, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care.